It's once again one of those 2019 releases from Herpa Wings, which has been delayed by quite a few months. So as always, the question remains, was it worth the wait? And with that, welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at an Airbus A220-100 from Delta Airlines. At the front of the box we have the cutout, so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the Delta Airlines branding. On the back side of the box, as this is a 2019 release by Herpa Wings, the only thing of interest we really have here is an image of the aircraft itself. And here she is, the Airbus A220-100 in the current livery of Delta Airlines. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this aircraft model was actually quite delayed. And actually, I think if I remember correctly, from the original announcement of Herpa to make this aircraft model to the point where they actually released it, that was actually when the aircraft model was still known as the CS100, and of course today as the Airbus A220-100. And we do see at least one sign of that on this model, but more on that later, because we start off with the tail section where we have the Delta Airlines branding on the vertical stabilizer. On top of that, we then have the Delta internal registration code for the aircraft. The full registration code for the aircraft we then find on the fuselage, where we also have the flag for the United States of America. On top of the fuselage we then have the sat dome, and that looks really massive for this tiny little aircraft model. Now when we look at the image on the box, well, the aircraft does seem to have a fairly large sat dome, but I think Herpa has maybe overdone it a little bit here. And then at the front of the aircraft we of course again have the Delta branding and also a SkyTeam logo, as Delta Airlines of course is a member of the SkyTeam Airline Alliance. At the very front we also have some nice detailing around the cockpit, where we have, for example, the window wipers, and just above the cockpit windows we also find the emergency hatch for the cockpit. The engine nacelles have been given the dark bluish color of Delta Airlines, and I think that's a really nice contrast to the otherwise quite white livery, and they're very nicely detailed, we can see here on the back side of the nacelles. I think that looks really nice, and of course if you look into the engines we can also see the engine fan blades very nicely. Just above the wings we then have the emergency exit printed on. I think that's very nice, and that of course leads us straight to the wings themselves, because we should also take a look at them. Here on the top side we can see all the different flaps, slats and spoilers carved out very nicely, and of course we also have the marking for the emergency exit printed on. The underside of the wings, well, I think that looks pretty decent as well. And then we of course also have the winglets on this very lovely little aircraft model, which have been given the dark bluish color of Delta Airlines. I think again that is a very nice contrast to the otherwise quite white livery. On the belly of the aircraft we then find the both writing and logo of Delta. Now, unfortunately we have a very common issue with Herpa Wings here, because they have once again added a hole in the fuselage for a stand which is not included with this aircraft model, and therefore pointless when it destroys otherwise really nice detail. And now to the little detail that kind of proves that this aircraft model was kind of planned and partially even produced before the name change from Bombardier to Airbus, because if you look here at the very top of the aircraft we can see it actually says CS100. And then we should also take a quick look at the landing gear. Here we can see the main landing gear underneath the wings, and again, especially when you consider the size of this aircraft model, I think Herpa has done a really excellent job with that. Also the front landing gear I do quite like. It's simple, but I think it looks rather good. And then last but not least, we should also take a look at the doors to the cargo compartments, which have been printed on here at the back side of the aircraft and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Airbus A220-100 in the current livery of Delta Airlines. And what can we say about this aircraft model? Well, I think it's great. Honestly speaking, I love these small aircraft models, and I think Herpa has done a really excellent job. Sure, the sat dome might be a little bit overscaled, and of course it has this quirky little detail that the aircraft type specification on the nose of the aircraft actually says CS100 instead of A220, although I think actually that is also the fact for the aircraft in real life, and I actually don't mind that, because I think it just shows the mixed history this aircraft has in real life and as a model. So I would say yes, this is definitely an aircraft worth having in one's collection. Now with that, we've reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then feel free to smash the like button. That really helps us out. If you're new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. And with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.